Now where did this come from? True, Mare was announced years back and has a few promising trailers to its name, but a long silence from developer Visiontrick Media left the fate of this VR adventure shrouded much like its Mistswept Island setting. It's quite a surprise to see it dropping at the start of 2021 then, especially on Oculus Quest. And what a pleasant surprise it is. Mare is a breathless beauty of a VR game. Simplistic in its progression perhaps, but never anything less than astonishing to take in. There's no beating around the bush. Its stoic scenery, backed up by the ambiguity of its plot, owes an enormous debt to Fumito Ueda's seminal trilogy of games. Ico's crumbling castles and foggy vistas are almost directly lifted into VR here, and the rickety wooden walkways and monolithic constructs that pepper the game throughout would be right at home in The Last Guardian and Shadow of the Colossus respectively. The game's enemies, if you can call them that, are a silent shadow race, and your AI companion communicates in what sounds like a lost language. But obvious as its inspirations are, Mare just about circumvents imitation. You control a mechanical bird that hops between perches to guide your companion, a small girl no older than 10 years old. The core of the game is tracing the correct path she needs to follow. For example, if you fly over to one perch, she might run into a dead end. But if you visit a different perch first and then return to that location, she may have climbed higher up and can reach a previously undiscovered spot. Occasionally, you'll need to shoot lightning to activate switches, encourage your newfound friend to make a move, or defend her from mysterious forces. As puzzle games go, it's pretty light stuff, with the most taxing of brain teasers coming from locating collectibles that will unlock a secret ending and stretch the initial 2-hour campaign out to around 3 or 4 hours. Mare never really wants to take your attention too far away from the sensory experience, and what an experience that is. ICO might be the launchpad, but it enables Mare to soar. I often couldn't believe that the game's stunning views, dense architecture, and labyrinthine design had been realised on the Oculus Quest. Its polygonal art direction favours style in substitute of exhaustive detail, but it often feels subtle when overlooking scenes that run for miles and even works to striking effect in certain moments such as the eye-widening opening. So potent is this concoction of a moggy, marshy wonder that I found myself longing to inhale the freezing air that lingers heavily in every level, or to feel the whip of the ever-present wind that ripples cloth and clothing on my face. And it has additions of its own, including a curious use of wartime imagery. Flak bombardments are ushered in on weather balloons, while the recurring use of flying aids reminded me of carrier pigeons that helped communications in both world wars. They do help restore some of the mysticism that the game loses in its close association with its inspirations, and I found myself trying to pick apart those strands in the days after finishing Mare. Particularly vexing is the thread of discomfort Visiontrick sows in the relationship between you and your companion. Undoubtedly, your goal in Mare is to aid the young girl that travels with you, but sometimes that protection comes at a heavy price. Forcing her to move by electrocuting nearby structures, at which point she'll emit a piercing shriek, or even exposing her to the game's shadowy enemies for a prolonged period of time never quite sits right, especially given the close and intimate proximity VR affords, and I would warn that it might make Mare a sometimes unnerving play for some, even if that might be the point. On a more superficial note, she's bound to repeat the same 3 or 4 lines over and over through the story, and it does begin to grate. What Mare doesn't quite do is reach a culminating sense of an epic. It's too lean to ever really achieve such status, never really giving you enough time nor reason to grow a lasting bond between the player and companion, and it's far too similar to the ICO trilogy to ever really be considered quite as profound. But consider the fact VR doesn't really have anything else quite so stoked in archaic delight as this, it still gets points. Mare's adherence to its inspiration steals some of the power behind its pathos, but as a sensory experience, there's nothing else quite like it in VR. Its light puzzling clears the way for a powerfully atmospheric and deliciously ambiguous adventure that is there to drink in more than it is play through. Immersing yourself in its breathless vistas and pondering its at times unnerving nature fills in for an otherwise lean and simplistic offering. Mare might not be the instant classic ICO in its ilkware, but it uses their shoulders to soar high. Thanks so much for watching this review. If you liked it, make sure to comment, like, subscribe and hit the notifications button. And stick with UploadVR for plenty more Oculus Quest coverage throughout 2021.